Okay, so let's get cracking with Hassan in Westminster with our first question. Hassan, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, hi. My question was, Jamie Driscoll, the mayor for north of Tyne, has been blocked by the Labour Central Office from standing again to defend the seat that he won because he shared a platform with Ken Loach, the legendary sort of filmmaker and anti-racism campaigner. So should Jamie run as an independent if he's been blocked to stand?
Okay, so the question is, should Jamie Driscoll, the Labour mayor, being prevented from standing again, becoming an independent candidate? Should he be allowed to, should he be prevented from standing again? Jamie Driscoll is currently the mayor of the North of Tyne Combined Authority. He's been excluded from the list of possible candidates for the new larger role of the mayor of the North East. He's been described as the last Corbynista standing in the Labour Party. Well, I've got to come to Rachel Shabi first on this one. Rachel.
Well, first of all, I think it's absolutely shocking and appalling that he's been blocked from standing. That goes against the natural democratic processes that the party has. The idea that, a central committee in London will decide on behalf of another part of the country who they can even select, never mind who they would have, just goes completely against any Labour Party claims to be trying to democratise and increase the democracy and connect people to politics. Secondly, the idea that someone like Jamie Driscoll or anyone else should be guilty by association, I think we can call that McCarthyist. Because what has Jamie Driscoll done? Actually, he's been on a platform with a filmmaker to discuss a film about the north of England, a new film. You would think that would be very pertinent to his constituents, who he serves very well and among whom he's very popular, by the way. Mm-hmm. The idea that someone in politics should not be able to stand next to someone else and then be guilty by association. And can you imagine the hundreds and thousands of people that politicians stand next to and share panels with on a regular basis as part of the job? It's absolute outrage. It's factional. It's using anti-Semitism as a political tool. Nobody who really wants to tackle anti-Semitism would do so in this way.
What is the actual specific issue? It's the fact that he shared a platform with Ken Loach, who's the filmmaker. Is that the fundamental issue here?
Well, that's the thing. It's very hard to say. It's very hard to see because there's such a lack of transparency about this process. So I don't think officially that was the reason given. However, we've seen many briefings from friends and allies of the leadership that was indeed the case. If it is the case, they should just come out and say it, and then we can have that conversation. But it's the opacity that I think is fueling part of the problem. And, nobody wants to be accused of being a racist or an anti-Semite. And I think just the whiff of it, just the association of it is so damning and can have such a chill factor that people just don't know what to say for fear of being tarred with the same brush. And again, anyone who wanted to tackle anti-Semitism would not do it in that way. Nobody genuinely interested in the issue would tackle it like this.
Hassan, quick comment from you on what you've heard from the panel.
Look, I think I really liked Rachel's view. I think this is essentially about, do you want local people to decide who their candidates are, or do you want to parachute in people who have no credibility from a centre office? And I think one of the pledges that Starmer had made, one of the many pledges that he's abandoned, is that he would bring empower the local electors. So he's going back on this pledge. And I think there is a real risk that people like Jamie, people like Corbyn and others could actually stand on their own and win or split the vote.
Rachel, do you think that's a fair point that Hassan's making? That, if that was to happen, that would be an absolute disaster for the Labour Party, wouldn't it? They would completely backfire this tactic.
It might backfire in that it would give them a lot of unwanted attention on that issue rather than what they want to present ahead of an election in a campaign. But I do think, we have to look at a much wider point here when we look at this is part of a pattern for Labour. And so when we look at the selection for parliamentary candidates that's taken place over the last year, you look at the kind of people who've been blocked, again, for factional reasons, the kind of people, the quality of people, very local community organisers, trade union organisers, people who really are part of the community, of the constituency that they seek to serve. Now, for Labour to say, we don't give a stuff about that, what message is that sending to people whose votes they are seeking in the next election?
But is that any different, Rachel, to what would have happened under Blair when it was also quite tightly controlled as well?
Well, it's interesting you say that.
Message discipline, isn't it?
It's really interesting you say that, because I've spoken with a lot of people about this.
Right.
And so many have said, look, I've been around politics for decades. Blair was nothing like this. This is so much worse than Blair. Blair wasn't as threatened by the left, and he actually didn't seek to, expel and purge to the same extent, as we can see, because we have quite a few left MPs in Westminster today that are a legacy of those years.